Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the Phoenix pub by Oxford Circus. It's me, it's Pat, and it's Zachary Jalab. Boys, how are we?
Well, very well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, anybody been doing anything exciting this week?
What did we do?
What did we do?
Point. What did we do?
Have you not been doing any Chelsea stuff?
I watched Chelsea lose to Brentford. That was good fun. Missed the Arsenal City game, which was disappointing. I helped out my brother with something. So.
At Crawley Town, wasn't it?
At Crawley Town, yeah. My brother's a coach there. He wanted me to come talk to his academy players about life in football but working in media.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Anything cool for you?
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Baby duty.
Baby Jew. Okay, fair enough. Right, we're going to move on to the topic of the show then, because that was very boring. Anyway, today, as you can see in the title, we're talking about players that need to leave their club this coming summer. Now, bear with us here, because this might take a little bit of explaining. We've come up with a little concept here. Patrick van Straten today is going to be leading his own footballing agency. Pato, the agent, has entered the world. Me and Zach are his little minions. We're going to be bringing him players that we think should be getting big moves this coming summer or need to leave their club for a number of different reasons. Pato is going to attempt to sign those players. He can pick 2 maximum to sign and try and get a big move for, and he's going to suggest a potential destination for that player. Does everybody understand?
Completely.
So, yeah.
What's your name first? Because we can't be calling you Patrick van Straten. You need either a...
Why? That's a great agent name.
It is quite a good agency.
Annoyingly, it's very good.
But you need a business name.
Jesterfoot. That's not taken.
That's taken.
It's not taken.
So you're going to oust George Mendes and you are now the...
What's a Dutch saying? What's like a Dutch saying?
I don't know, man. I don't actually speak Dutch.
Agency Orange.
That's actually pretty good. I'll be Pato Raiola.
Pato Raiola.
Who was a great Dutch agent.
Okay, right. We're going to...
Everyone thinks he's Italian. Not.
Was he Dutch?
Yeah.
Didn't
Well, you know.
that. Okay, so Pato is taking over the role of super agent. Jalab, are you pitching the first candidate that you think needs a big move this
Can
summer?
I just say, I'm giving priority to anybody who's targeting a club where I can get the maximum agent fees. So anyone...
Is that the kind of agent you're going to be?
Yeah. Anyone pitches a player for like Atletico Madrid, a Chinese club, Man United, Chelsea, I'm taking it.
Okay.
That's the type of... You're a scumbag, mate.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with my defensive option, and we're going up to Manchester City because Aymeric Laporte is having a rough season by his standards. Yeah, look, Aymeric Laporte has had injuries as well this campaign. He's missed, I think, something like 11 games through injury. He missed 3 months with knee surgery. However, he's been back for a little while and not really featured. He's had just over 600 Premier League minutes. Obviously, we've always kind of had this. We've always said this about Pep Guardiola. Every season, he decides whoever's the best centre-back the year before, he's now not playing.
Yeah.
And now Stones obviously has had a fantastic campaign. Diaz has been brilliant. Those two are normally the back line.
Ake's been the best of the
has
lot.
been incredible, exactly. And we've seen, obviously, Kyle Walker still feature, so on and so forth. And I think there have been times that Laporte has featured at left back, but that's not his ideal position for sure. Obviously, they've also got Akanji, who they brought in the summer and has been brilliant as well. And I think just during those 3 months when he had that surgery, you've seen the likes of Ake rise. You saw Akanji have some stellar performances, and basically his kind of rank drop down in the kind of Pep Guardiola system. Add to the fact as well, there are rumours of Gravenberch coming in the summer and defensive reinforcements. Obviously, they'll still be looking at possibly improving that left-back situation, maybe even the right-back situation. And I feel like Laporte is somebody we can go and pitch to another club for the future. Now, it's not the first time that Laporte
Why would he leave City, though, man?
He's just not playing. He's not playing, and supposedly is very unhappy about this, according to reports in Spain.
And if they were to win the Champions League this season, I mean, why not go somewhere else where you can get paid and play?
Yeah, the issue we have slightly is that financially it's going to cost a decent chunk to get him, I reckon. He's contracted until 2025, so obviously not next season, season after. And so they don't necessarily have to sell him this summer. And we know what City are like. They don't need to sell players. They're obviously financially very, very strong. Maybe FFP wise, they might need to look at players that they can sell in order to bring in other ones if they are looking at the likes of Gravenberch.
And they're not scared to move on assets. I mean,
They
we've
really
seen
are.
recently, haven't we? Very successfully now. Some of these sales look fantastic. Like Raheem Sterling at £50 million, Ferran Torres at £50 million.
Yeah.
They've not been scared to move on assets. Even Zinchenko and Gabi Jesus, when they think that player doesn't want to be there.
Exactly.
They're effectively
They've
gone.
always had that mentality, even with like Sane Sane back in the day of if a player doesn't want to be at Manchester City, we're not going to keep you here. We're not going to tie you down. I say that Bernardo Silva is there, but it's normally if they can get a decent price that they're happy with, they're more than willing to let you go. And for like someone like Laporte, who this isn't the first time he's not necessarily featured lots. He's several seasons in a row. I think 2019-20, he only got 14 league starts and played under 1,400 minutes. And so yes, I think a destination that could be for him, where are supposedly looking at him, is Barcelona. I do slightly worry in terms of the fact that Barcelona, the way they're kind of doing their signings, are very much looking at players who are
free,
out of contract in the summer, and that is not going to be Aymeric Laporte. And how much City want for him will probably be at least £40 million at least.
At least, I would say, given he's got more than 1 year left on his contract, and is definitely one of the best centre backs in the league.
Precisely. I think what is interesting is we've not been able to see him since his knee op. And since what he's been like since he had this knee surgery, because his last full 90 against a top team in the top half of the table was back in February. So he's not really featured a lot. He has played against the likes of Sheffield United in the cup and so on and so forth, and Burnley and so on. But we've not seen him kind of have to play a very high intense game for a full 90 minutes. Very much been a sub option. So that is my slight worry. But I don't think we have to kind of let too many clubs know about that side of things, what he's going to be post knee op, when we can get our agency fee. But he is now closing in to 30, not 30 just yet. Closing in.
Last big money move potentially. As an agency, we should be thinking about that.
Sure. My one concern is the size of the market here. So I think there are teams like Spurs who'll be looking for centre backs, but I think Longley's going to go back to Barcelona. And that's going to be a bit of an issue for them. I think they'll be more focused on shifting people than bringing people in. And if he doesn't go there, do I see Real Madrid paying big money for him? Not sure. Do I see Bayern? Don't know. Chelsea won't. I don't know. I look
it's
around.
It's a small market, I agree.
Maybe Juve, but what side does Bremer play on?
I think he plays on the left, actually.
Okay, so this is the thing. This is my one concern. Like, what do we do if Barcelona say, well, we've got 20 mil?
Yeah.
I agree, Pat. I think this is a poor suggestion from one of your minions here. I don't think there's a market
this
for it.
This boy loves digging the opposition
Despicable.
out,
Despicable you. The worst minion.
I just don't think there's a market for Aymeric Laporte this summer. And to be honest with you, I think he's smart enough to know that he's at the best side in world football right now.
Sure.
Why leave Manchester City when you've talked about already the fact that centre-backs one season might be set out to one side. The next season, they're starting every game. And I think that's very possible to happen to Aymeric Laporte next season at Manchester City. I don't think there's any reason that when he's fully fit, he won't be starting in that team.
I would agree if it wasn't for the fact that he's already had seasons like this, where he's had 2 seasons in a row where he started 14 games. And supposedly this is the big, according to reports anyway, because these reports also say he's willing to take a pay cut, that he wants to be playing and he wants to be featuring much more than just 646 Premier League
Not
minutes.
enough, I agree.
And especially at someone his age, who, as you said, is getting into that kind of final transfer, not necessarily final stage of his career, but still at his peak, will want to be playing. He wants to be a key part of that team. And if you're going week in, week out, being like, is Pep, maybe next season I'll start you, but we're also looking at someone like Gavardiol, and they've obviously got John Stones, who's been incredible, and they've obviously got Ruben Diaz, who's been incredible. Like, I don't feel like Pep's really going to be putting him back in the side anytime soon.
We've also, remember, got the Euros next year.
Yeah.
Already the Euros are coming up, and he will want to be in contention to play.
That's a really good point from an agent. No, that's a very, very good point. All right, I haven't got a centre-back. I'm going to throw in a midfielder here, a defensive midfielder, though, to a level. Not really a classically defensive midfielder, more of a deep-line playmaker. I'm going to suggest Ruben Neves. I think this is the summer Neves is finally going to get his move away from Wolves. Not that he's been forcing it away from Wolves, but, at the end of last season, we saw him crying on the pitch, didn't we? Everybody kind of thought, this is obviously going to be the summer Ruben Neves leaves, and nothing ever really came of it. There was not a huge amount of interest, or Wolves were not willing to drop their price low enough to create that level of interest. But he is 26 now. He's been at Wolves 6 years. Wow. That is a serious stint. He's probably Wolves' best player of the last 50 years. He's actually an absolute club legend there. Genuinely, to arrive at Wolves as one of the best, highly talented young central midfielders in Europe, really, when he was captain in Porto at 18, arrive at Wolves at 20, take him up from the Championship. He's averaged 37 games a season for Wolves across 6 seasons. He has been like a model professional, probably the best player, like I said, of the last 50 years at Wolves. And I think now is the time for him to move on. He's got a year left on his contract. I think there's plenty of options in the market for him, unlike a player like Aymeric Laporte, who's got a very limited pool. I think in terms of deep-lying playmakers, controlling midfielders that can offer some defensive stability, there's a huge market, especially given that he is still only 26. I say only, it's not 30, Aymeric Laporte age, is it? So he's not over the hill yet. He's just about in his peak as a player. And I also feel like this is the first time Wolves have had enough midfield depth to potentially consider a sale. In the past, behind Ruben Neves, behind João Moutinho, it's been extremely thin. I look at a couple of Wolves' best performances this season under Lopetegui, and I'm not saying this is a correlation at all, but they've actually come when Ruben Neves has been out of the team or suspended. And the midfield's been, Lamina, and it's been Matheus Nunes or Gomez. I think that there are now players there to at least fill that void. So if he was to leave, I don't think Wolves fans would begrudge him a move to a top 6 European side. I think he's probably ready to take the step up, and I think Wolves would have enough cover that they might be willing to go, okay, do you know what? We're happy to move on now.
When does his contract end?
His contract ends in 2024.
So the last chance to get money for him.
It's the last chance to get money for him, unless they were to sell him in the January of 2024. And I think a reasonable fee, £40 million, sort of figure, would be enough to tempt Wolves into a sale. That would be a big old fee for a player they've got massive service out of. It would still be turning a profit on the original fee they paid to Porto. I think it'd be a really good option. His numbers are still extremely solid. Even defensively, they're pretty impressive. But most impressive, things like pass progression numbers, like his pass accuracy is very, very high. He's a really good ball retainer. His long passing and ability to switch play is almost unmatched in the league. When he picks the ball up in low positions and fires it out to a winger, it's sensational. I think there's a lot of suitors, and I think one of them will be paying huge agency fees to the boys. I think Man United should be very interested in a player like Ruben Neves.
Well, you think in a team that is overall better than Wolves, he might take it himself as well to that next level when he's playing with better players, playing in competitions obviously against better teams too.
Yeah, why not?
A team like, do you think he'd play alongside Casemiro
Absolutely.
kind of as the Eriksen replacement?
I think Manchester United desperately need a ball controlling midfielder.
Yeah.
We see Christian Eriksen be able to do it for 30, 40 minutes. He just doesn't have the legs to do that role and offer enough defensive cover across 90 minutes. He's too easy to run off, but he is very, very good at controlling the game, progressing play, and even creating chances, which isn't necessarily something Ruben Neves is particularly strong at. But there's enough facets in Manchester United's attack to mean you don't need that deep-line playmaker to be able to create chances, in my opinion. And I don't think it's just Manchester United could be interested in a player like Ruben Neves. Liverpool are going to be desperately needing central midfielders this summer in a turnover. Arsenal might even look for another midfielder. Barcelona have been linked in the past. I think there's plenty of options in the market. And like I said, I'm going through Wolves' midfield roster. Boubacar Traoré was made permanent, wasn't it? Lamina's there. Moutinho is still there, although his contract is up in the summer. So there's a bit of debate on whether or not Lopetegui wants to renew that. I think he's kind of kick the can down the road a little bit and said we'll come to it at the end of the season. You've got Nunes, you've got João Gomez as well. I think there's enough cover in there that Wolves will be willing to sell, and I think we could get a big old agency fee off United.
I'll say, what's the fee you think roughly it would take to get someone like him?
I think 35, 40 million, honestly. I know.
With a year left.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
and
think
if so many clubs are after him, the agency fee.
Exactly. It's going to be difficult, though, as he's currently under the Gestafugue banner. So we're going to have to do some really dodgy dealing with Jorge Mendes to get him under our
That's
agency.
fine.
We'll leave
That's
that with
fine.
Pat.
We can little bro that guy. That's not a big deal. I think there is actually an interesting market for him because obviously he's young enough that you're going to get half a decade of service out of him, but he's hugely experienced.
Yeah.
Really active in the duel. I do think he gets underrated defensively.
Yeah, I agree.
And that progressive passing. I mean, what he's not going to do for United is do some of the stuff Eriksen's been doing recently where he drops out to kind of the left wing, some of the funkier stuff. But I think a three-man midfield of Casemiro, Neves and Bruno is really interesting. They all speak Portuguese, and I think they're a really interesting mix of profiles. You've got your destroyer there, who's extremely mobile. You've got your game controller, and then you've got your guy who's just like Hail Mary passer and huge final third presence. So that's an interesting one for me. Even Man City, if Man City, for example, decided to move on Calvin Phillips because there are rumours teams might come in for big money. Well, I don't think they'd get him to replace that role, but as your backup for Rodri, if you could turn Calvin Phillips into Neves and like 5 to 10 million, which are the rumours, that would be amazing business for Manchester City.
Yeah, I think
Interesting.
Calvin
Pretty-
Phillips would have been a
pretty
better
fun.
suggestion than Laporte. I think you should just chuck his Laporte suggestion in the bin straight away.
All right, let's calm down.
I
we
think-
don't
I
have to
think-
make decisions yet.
I think if
Jeez.
Laporte were 2 or 3 years younger,
Let's calm
I
down.
think there'd be a big market for him. But I think my worry is that Barcelona are just not liquid right now.
It wouldn't shock me.
Do you want to keep progressing up the pitch? Have you got any
Let's-
midfielders?
I
Have you got
do
another
have
deep
some
line
midfielders.
midfielder?
I do have some midfielders. I want to bring to our attention a player from Southampton. Now, I actually think in general, Southampton, and to be honest, any club that goes down this season has a few
There's a lot of talent.
gems you could be picking up. Now, Southampton in general, Tino Livramento is somebody who's obviously been very, very exciting. We've still not really seen him kind of return from his injury. Carl Walker-Peters is probably at least Premier League level. James Ward-Prowse is a guy who can be picked up by quite a few Premier League clubs. But the guy I want to suggest, Che Adams is another guy. The guy I want to suggest, Bella Kotchap, is Romeo Lavia. Now, we spoke about him a lot all season. He's only 19 years old and only joined them in the summer for this kind of Ralph Hasenhüttl youth revival, where they got obviously a lot of youngsters and a lot of City Academy youngsters as well, from the goalkeeper, from the to Romeo as well in midfield. And I think this season we've seen him have a solid debut campaign. For a guy that is developing in midfield, he's had to do a lot of work defensively for Southampton. And I think he's done that to a pretty good standard. I think he's another player who, when he's playing in a better side, you'll also be able to see his kind of passing range and stuff like that a lot more. We can see it slightly in Southampton. I remember the game against Chelsea, mainly because we were very bad, but also he was super impressive next to someone like James Ward-Prowse as well. I think he's a guy that obviously has been looked at by the likes of Chelsea as well. Supposedly there were those rumours that when he was bought from Southampton, Chelsea offered £50 million for him in that same window before he'd even played a single minute, which is ridiculous, to be quite honest. Now, there are things like the Man City buyback clause for £40 million.
That's a problem, though, for us as agents.
No, because that isn't active until 2024. This summer, that buyback isn't a thing. So he can be sold on, he can be moved on. That buyback can only happen in 2024, according to reports, that is, anyway.
Okay, but that puts the floor of any potential deal at 40
million.
Unless he's got a relegation clause.
Yes, which is, there is.
I wouldn't be surprised if I'd gone to Southampton last summer, I'd say I want a relegation clause.
Definitely.
I think a lot of Premier League clubs in general, you'd like to think anyway, or players are smart enough to kind of do that thing. Now, recently as well, he was actually criticised by his manager, Ruben Neves, who said apparently he expected more from him on the pitch in his recent games.
This is what I've heard a lot, I've heard this from a lot of Southampton fans I've spoken to, that when it's a TV game, it's under the lights, it's a big team, he is really, really good. But the games that maybe aren't on TV and are just passing by against rivals, i.e. Bournemouth's, i.e. Leicester's, Leeds's, it's like 5, 6s out of 10. It's like he's underperforming the level he could be playing.
But he is 19.
Yeah.
He turned 19 in January.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy who I think still needs to be developed, and depending on what club we send him to as well, that would have to be a key thing, a club that is going to develop a player like this. And I think with his age, that doesn't surprise me that he's dropping some performances where maybe he has got a little bit lost in the midfield. He's playing in the Premier League at 18. He turned 19 in Jan, so that doesn't shock me at all. And from what we've seen already at this age, he really does look impressive. He's already been called up to the Belgian national team as well, which for the likes in replacement of someone like Axel Witsel, so showing that he's obviously got the future, that the national team believe in him. And as for what club I kind of had in mind for him, I think there are several. But for someone that can kind of obviously give him the next level up, can improve him as well as a player, Brighton.
I was thinking the exact same club.
Brighton.
That's so weird. I was thinking the exact same club.
Especially when you consider the likes that Caicedo looks like he's not going to be
McAllister
there next
potentially
season. McAllister. Like, this is a guy who they might be willing to spend. Obviously, he's not going to be the exact transfer that they normally do, maybe $4 million.
If they go down and there is a release clause.
Exactly. But even then, you still think that release clause might be something like 15, if it's something like that.
That's cheap,
It
man.
is. But what I mean is Brighton are shipping in markets or shopping in markets where it's 5 million, right?
Yeah, but I think they would be willing to do that. They
I
must
also-
have paid a similar
exactly,
fee
exactly.
to
And I also
João
think
Pedro.
depending on how
But then
they're-
Brighton have to make a decision. Brighton have to make a decision at this point whether this season, where everything's gone right, is the highest we ever go.
Yeah.
Like in an exceptional season every few years we get European football. But basically we are always going to be an upper mid-table side. Or they've got to decide, maybe we spend a bit more money and try and kick a level higher.
Yeah.
Well, this would be an interesting move if they did want to do that, but without completely kind of giving up their principles. I don't really know how Brighton conceive of their future. But if you're going to get, 80 million or 100 million for
Exactly.
Caicedo, and you have to pay 40 for Lavia, it doesn't feel particularly Brighton, but it wouldn't be an unreasonable thing for them to do, especially given the depth in
And
them.
also-
they're just kids appearing all the time, bro. Like Buonanotte and Ciso, like these guys just appear out of absolutely nowhere.
It's
and look
impressive.
amazing.
And also, I know we're talking about Brighton here. This is a guy that was looked at by Chelsea. He's apparently been looked at by Manchester United as well.
Arsenal, I think, as well.
Arsenal. There are lots of clubs that are going after him. In terms of his career, I think a move to Brighton, something like that, would be the best for him, where he's going to get great minutes, be playing under a great coach in a tactical system where you're going to be getting the kind of best out of him.
Brentford.
And I really do think... Yeah, quite possibly. I really do think a team
I don't
where
like these
a
suggestions.
team where he could be.
Where's the
just
agency
allowed
fees
to-
for us, mate? Because
Exactly.
Brighton ain't paying us nothing.
Brighton and not
Brentford
paying
ain't paying us
anything.
nothing.
They're
It's a
not
good
Think about the
suggestion.
player, lads. Think about the player,
this
lads.
is the thing.
Don't care.
Is
Don't care, bunts.
publicly, we'll be saying we really care about this player and his future. Privately, we're thinking, how much money are we earning out of this deal?
Okay,
we're earning
because-
very
all right,
nothing.
but
Because
think about the
my
long-term future
attitude
here.
is like,
All
he's 19, I can sign him up. He
Okay.
can spend a year in the championship getting like 3,500 minutes, and we can do another big move in like 20 when he's 22,
No,
23.
I've got it.
Why would I try and make a Brighton move happen now when Brighton are going to pay me in like fish or something?
For sure.
Like, I just don't need to do
But
it.
think about the long term here. Brighton pay us this summer. Okay, we accept it. It is what it is. He has a stellar season. He has a Caicedo season.
Okay, it's the long game.
120
game.
million
Yeah.
next
It is
summer.
the long game.
You know what I
It's
hate?
an option.
The long game. Do you know what I love? Money out. No, but I mean, like, he's definitely somebody who you would want to think about because it looks like he's going to have a pretty spectacular career, injury permitting. As much as he might, if he goes down to the Championship and Southampton don't come back up and Man City don't execute their buyback, then suddenly you've got a guy in the Championship that Southampton are like, well, we want 40 million for this guy, but he's just playing Championship football.
Yeah.
So the other thing you're gambling on is how high is his stock now relative to in 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
Because his next move could be a free.
Yeah.
You know, if they just get stuck in the Championship for a few years. I like it. I like the player.
Think about it.
I really like the
Well,
player.
I've got another young midfield suggestion of a similar age that I
Okay.
think would be a potential better option for us as an agency in terms of short money and long-term money. And that player is Ryan Gravenberch, who I think we should be looking to pick up as an agency. I think it was a smart bit of business. And I feel he's ready already for another move. I think this is a player who, as the title of this video suggests, guys, needs a move this coming summer. I really do. He's 20 years old. Obviously, we're fully aware of the fee Bayern Munich paid for him. £20 million. It's not an awful lot of money.
He was in the last year of his deal, though, wasn't he, at Ajax, I think?
I think he was approaching it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
1 or 2 years left. But Bayern, according to Bild, anyway, are willing to accept €10 million profit, €10 million profit on the 20 million.
Oh, that's
they
bigger
paid
than.
for it, which is, I think, €30 million
Wow.
for Ryan Gravenberch is cheap.
Yeah, though it is a bit weird to say this guy has come to us, has not played, and now he's worth 10 million.
I know it is a bit bizarre,
but you're paying for the contract.
Yeah,
I suppose.
exactly. And you got to think that originally he was worth more than €20 million that they paid for him, probably coming out of Ajax, given the caliber of performance he was putting in the Eredivisie, in European competition. I mean, he was making his debut for Ajax in the Eredivisie at 16. He is an extremely highly talented central midfielder, and there is no shame in not being able to get in the team ahead of Goretzka and Kimmich, who was one of the most established central midfield partnerships in European football. But he hasn't got enough game time. That's the truth this
Yeah.
season. One start is just not good enough in the Bundesliga. 300 minutes of Bundesliga football this season, and they've already gone out and signed Konrad Laimer. I'm sorry, but the Konrad Laimer arrival, if I was Ryan Gravenberch, would be pinging alarm bells.
They're
in my
not
head.
similar sorts of players, though. Like, okay, my issue here is
They're not,
he's a
but it's
very
another
specific-
midfield body, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, I agree. But like he's a very specific guy. So he's a midfielder, but he's kind of a tweener. Like he wants to get into the attack. He wants to get into the final third. Big creative numbers. People likened him to a
Huge
young
shot
Paul
creating
Pogba when
numbers.
he was at Ajax, but he's actually more like a late Paul Pogba in that he really is thinking forward and he's not really thinking backwards.
Yeah, I mean, huge shot creating action numbers. Top 5% for shot creating actions. We're talking a player who's like top 10% progressive carries, successful take-ons, progressive passes
How many
received.
minutes are we talking here?
Across the last year, very, very little.
Okay, right,
Yeah,
sure.
which is obviously
Very
a
few
problem.
minutes playing for Bayern.
And Ajax. Like two of the most dominant sides in their leagues. But that doesn't mean to say that the talent isn't there
No, I agree.
for Ryan Gravenberch. And I think it is. And I think he will get a big move. He's spoken very publicly to German media over the last 2 weeks saying this can't continue. I need to be starting week in, week out. He's not going to be starting. Spoiler alert, Thomas Tuchel is not starting 20-year-old Ryan Gravenberch in a central midfield duo week in, week out.
Okay,
it is not happening.
But my bigger issue there is who is going to start him week in, week
Liverpool
out.
are.
And who's going to start him week in, week out, and who is going to give me a lot of money?
Liverpool are.
Do you think?
Liverpool.
You think he starts?
I think he starts for Liverpool. I absolutely think.
I don't think there's a home. I don't think there's a home for him and Elliott in the same 11.
I don't think Elliott has a future in the central midfield of Liverpool. I think
I
Ryan
don't think he has a
Gravenberch
future in the
does.
attack either.
I know, and that's a problem for Liverpool. That is a problem.
That's not our problem.
But I absolutely.
Well, it is a bit though if Klopp is committed to Elliott, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, to a level. But then I absolutely think I would rather be starting Gravenberch than playing Jordan Henderson in this weird hybrid.
I agree.
Like moving into forward areas role. I don't think he offers anything when he comes in off that right hand side. Like I don't think that works. And when he drifts into just off the edge of the box, it all looks a bit eggy. And that's where Ryan Gravenberch is absolutely excellent when he's doing his work, like Pat says, in slightly more advanced shuttling roles. I think he easily has the physicality to be able to rock it in a Liverpool midfield, which you need because Klopp is going to make you burn and churn over the yards. I think he is a perfect player. I actually think he's almost a better fit than Jude Bellingham for the Liverpool midfield.
You know, I think Tottenham are an interesting candidate here as well. Tottenham don't have any forward-thinking midfielders.
I agree.
They need one guy at least who can join the attack. Because everybody they have in there, I like almost all their midfielders, but they are all sort of hard-working bodies, you know.
I think he could be a potential fit for Arsenal as well in the Granit Xhaka role, where Granit Xhaka has been pushed on a little bit further this season, and he could just float into the box, arrive a little bit late, and we know how damaging he can be. I can imagine him and Martin Odegaard playing absolutely beautifully together.
For 30 million, million, someone, even if Arsenal obviously don't win the Premier League and finish second, like they'll be looking to spend a lot more in the summer to improve their midfield.
And if they get Rice,
yeah,
like it seems like Rice is going to be their top target. If they spend that money on Rice, that's bananas. Like if they spend, I'm not saving Private Ryan. Like if they spend huge money on Rice, then as sad as it is to say for Arsenal fans, the Caicedo Mount rumours will go away.
Exactly. But then Gravenberch could open up. And also, coming back to them again, they pay huge agency fees. Eric Ten Hag at Manchester United, clearly going to be interested in Gravenberch. In fact, approached Bayern Munich in the January window for Gravenberch. Bayern said, we're not willing to let him go, but you can have Sabitzer. I think Man United's Sabitzer loan, you know, not convinced that's going to be made permanent, and Man United might go back in for a player like Gravenberch at a cut price fee if they're going to spend all of their money on a number 9. If they go out and spend £100 million on number 9, they're going to have to look for slightly more budget options in the midfield. I think Gravenberch is going to be massively highly coveted this summer, and as an agency, when a player has got 5 or 6 clubs that you could potentially go to for £30 million, and he's so young, could have that future high-end, huge contract numbers, I think this is a no-brainer to get Gravenberch a big move this summer. He can't stay at Bayern, man. He cannot be starting one Bundesliga game a season. That's a disgrace.
The only issue is if he goes to Liverpool, he's probably going to be there for a long time. And we know, and what I like is when a player goes to one club, disaster, another club, disaster, keeps moving from big club to big club, making me
maybe that is Ryan Gravenberch, though.
Money.
Maybe he is the player who just goes Bayern to Liverpool to PSG.
A Rabiot type. A shithead who's going to make me a lot of in commish. Okay, this is good, interesting. I'm intrigued. So we've got some really interesting candidates here, and what we're noticing generally, I'd say, is that if you're looking for a midfielder this summer, the market is absolutely flooded. I mean, a couple of sixes in there who historically have been pretty rare, but Neves and Lavia as Premier League experienced midfield options, very nice. Gravenberch, a completely different profile, like the Arsenal shout. I think that would be interesting because we haven't actually heard the kind of realistic Arsenal shouts. Like, you know, it's tended to be like, maybe they're going to spend 200 million on midfielders. It's not going to happen. And yes, multiple teams probably are going to go in for Bellingham and not get him.
100%.
And if you go in for Bellingham and you don't get him,
option too,
and Bellingham is turning into this kind of player, right? The guy who parks around the edge of the box as opposed to one stage where he looked like more of a game controlling midfielder. Okay.
And he's turned into a bit of a unicorn as well, Bellingham.
He can play lots of different roles.
Yeah, exactly. And
he's very Gundogan in that sense.
I know.
Indeed.
If he goes there, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, Gundogan replacement is happening as well.
Doesn't matter. Raicedo midfield.
Raicedo.
Have you got a striker?
I don't have a striker, but I have a kind of a midfield attacker. He can kind of go into both roles. He's somebody who this season has been his club's best player. It's none other than James Maddison.
Okay.
Again, another player who,
It's a
if they
tasty
go
treat.
down, a lot of clubs will be after him. And even if they stay up, I still think a lot of clubs.
There's
will
no
be
way he
after
stays.
him. No, 100%.
cannot stay at Leicester another
I think,
season.
and from what reports are saying, Leicester have kind of admitted it that they know James Maddison will be off in the summer. And the club that we obviously saw for him go in for him in January, Newcastle United.
It's an amazing signing.
So a lot of money there, Pat, that we can be kind of looking at as well. Just keep that in mind. Obviously, this season,
Do you like taking
Has
money
got-
from Saudi Arabia? Do you like it?
he's got better and better this season, obviously, and obviously previously compared to other seasons. 9 goals, 7 assists this campaign. I mean, we know how much he's doing for Leicester. His goal contributions this season alone contributes to 36% of their Premier League goals. One thing to him as well that I think we would need to be pitching towards him is how we can get him into this England team more and more. And I think the best way for him to be doing that is playing in a side that is going to be competing in not just the top half of the table, but for Champions League football. And I think that someone like Newcastle is going to be doing that because, like, when we see Mason Mount playing, and not Jadon Sancho, the other Manchester United players, Marcus Rashford, so on and so forth. These guys,
The other Manchester United player, Marcus Rashford.
But these guys who are playing in the top half of the table, going for European football, going for even Europa League football at times, and are impressing Gareth Southgate. I think that's what James Maddison needs to just receive his 3rd England cap. He's only got 2 so far. Yes, I know. So I think that's something we would have to be talking to him about and kind of putting pressure on that side of things, saying we can get you more England appearances, because that's something he talks about all the time. And he came out after the World Cup and even said about how he was so disappointed to get that injury because he felt like that he might have got opportunities as well there. Now, he is 27 next season, and so I think this is still a good period for us to kind of get a good fee for him. He might even then be able to possibly get another move on if he was to be looked at. I mean, there is the other option as well that Pep Guardiola looked at him in the summer to possibly buy him from Leicester City at Manchester City, which could be interesting. He has 1 year left on his contract.
Does it? 2024?
2024.
He's gone there.
So this is the last time Leicester City can get any money for him. And I think we can really kind of push up our agency fees if we start talking to other clubs about the likelihood of possibly Tottenham Hotspur.
I think
about
definitely
whether they want.
I think even Chelsea. If Mount goes, Chelsea are going to need
if Mason Mount goes, I think that is a good option.
I think Liverpool too.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that'd be interesting. I think it's an interesting period for him, right? Because if you can't get into the England team now with Mount in the form he's in, it's never going to happen. Because we all assume Mount is getting a move this summer, and that means Mount will probably be quite a lot better next year. So this is your window to really stake your claim to that England 10 role. Otherwise, you're probably never going to get it because it is a vanishing window.
It is, and for him, when I was reading interviews, it's so important to him playing for England. The chief executive of Leicester as well came out and said that they basically need to sell in the summer. Their latest accounts apparently showed a loss of £92 million.
Didn't they write that off though? I thought the owners wrote that off.
They might have
They did write
it off. However, they still need to be bringing in some revenue. Obviously, Newcastle in January offered £32 million. I still think it might cost a little bit more than that to get
Maybe
him.
40 though, I don't know.
Not much more. 40 is what
If
I was
somebody else
kind
is
of
in, if
thinking.
Spurs are in as well, because Spurs, you've got to imagine, would go to 45, 50 for Maddison.
I do wonder as well whether if they do get relegated, what happens there in terms of any relegation clauses, any fees like that. I don't know if when he signed for Leicester, they thought, is there a chance he can get relegated? Maybe in general, his previous agents just
Did he not sign for Leicester in the Championship? No,
he didn't.
No,
He was in
he came up from Norwich.
They signed him as the replacement for Riyad Mahrez when he moved to Manchester City.
good bit of business.
And he had a great first season.
Yeah.
Okay, does have some injury history.
Some.
Yeah, okay. My other issue with it is that he's not in last big contract territory, but he is slightly older than I would like.
Okay.
Because if you get a 25-year-old, then I think you get this big contract and then you get a renegotiation at sort of 28, 29. Whereas if you're already about to be 27 going in, does that team give you another long contract at 30? It's hard to say.
But I mean, Newcastle,
they have to be really like a game changer for you to get that contract renegotiation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do understand. But I would say Newcastle aren't afraid to give older players longer contracts. Look at when they got Kieran Trippier.
Well, now,
right back.
Yeah, but that was when that will change over time. I don't think
I
that they're
guess
going to
so.
keep doing that forever.
I
Like,
guess so.
I think they could easily get Maddison and be like, we expect to have 5 years of Maddison, and if he goes on a free at the end of it, so
We're
be
okay,
it, because
yeah.
we'll have built the squad during that time.
Yeah, that is understandable.
But
That
he
is
would be a
understandable.
real game changer for them or for Spurs.
Well, look, they've currently got Murphy playing on the right wing. They've had Almiron play there as well. That would be getting Maddison to play on that right wing. It seems ready made for
These
him.
are
It seems
improvable
perfect for
positions.
him. It really is.
Yeah.
I think it kind of and it
And
felt
he covers
like
a lot of positions.
yeah, exactly. He can do midfield, and it felt like in January.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
same way
he was
Jacob
kind of-
Murphy's been doing
He
it.
was keen for it as well.
Okay, I'm going to suggest a slightly more higher caliber name than we've had so far. I think probably the highest caliber name on the table. I'm going to suggest Lautaro Martinez,
Okay.
who is still only 25. Like, how is he still only
He's been
25?
going for a while,
He's been
hasn't
around
he?
for fucking ages, man. And he's been around for ages scoring goals. He just scores goals consistently every single season, creates chances every single season. He's a nightmare as both a 9 and a second striker. I think he can play both of those functions. He can link midfield to attack as well. And the main reason I'm pitching Lautaro Martinez to get a move this summer is I think so many clubs need number 9s
Yeah.
and strikers. And Inter Milan have to sell players. They've got 8
Yeah, massively.
first-team players out of contract. They've got Romelu Lukaku on loan. They owe 275 million that has to be paid by July the 1st to Oak Tree Capital for the COVID loan. Where else are they making money? Like Skriniar's out of contract. Bastoni potentially is a sellable asset. Barella is a potential sellable. I think Lautaro Martinez, if I was him, I would be thinking about this is probably the last hurrah. The last hurrah. Try and get to a Champions League final with Inter Milan. Try and cause some chaos against a Real Madrid or a Manchester City in the final. They're currently 6th, 2 points off of the Champions League places. But domestically, ever since that Champions League run has started to happen, them and AC Milan have really started to backpedal. I think they've just one win in the last 5, something like that. And I just think that Lautaro Martinez must be looking at this thinking, do you know what? You know, I've won league titles here. I could potentially get to a Champions League final here. But what else can I do here? This is probably my time to move on. This summer, they need to raise capital. He's been talked about with potential exits at about 80 million euros, 90 million euros over the last couple of summers, and it's never really appeared. I would be pushing for an exit, even though I've got a contract to 2026, which is a bit of a problem for Martinez. But his numbers are incredible, yet again, for Inter Milan. You know, he's going at a goal every other game. He's running at sort of 0.7 expected goals and assists every single season at Inter Milan. He's running at 0.6 expected goals this season per 90. He's an absolute nightmare. His shot numbers are bananas.
Yeah, he's a 4-shot a game guy. Generally.
Over 4 shots a game guy, really. Like, he's always getting in good positions. And I think the amount of clubs that will want a striker and not be able to get Osimhen or Kane, when they look at the rest of the market, is there a better option than Lautaro Martinez on it? I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure there is. I think that he's not being talked about enough with moves to Manchester United, Bayern Munich, who need a number 9, PSG, who are about to lose, you know, Messi and Neymar, Chelsea. I think there's so many big super clubs that need number
Spurs
9s.
are going to have to do something splashy if Kane goes to appease the fans.
To appease the fans. That it's incredible. I'm not seeing more links to Lautaro Martinez from these big clubs because yes, he might not be the classic, you know, vintage style number 9 in the way that Haaland has kind of changed the game this season. People are kind of reverting back to that classic physical. Can bring players into the game with his hold-up play, but can also poach in the box.
He's not weak, though, is he?
But he's not weak. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely phenomenal player that doesn't get enough credit, and I think should be on the radar of particularly Bayern Munich. I think would be a really, really good fit for Lautaro Martinez. I read reports this week, and I was listening to Rafa Honigstein say that they are willing to spend 100 million euros on a striker this summer, Bayern Munich. They're willing to sell Sadio Mane already, cut their losses there, and do their arse, basically, on a striker because they can't score goals. I think top scorer is Jamal Musiala with 11 goals.
Well, they can score goals.
But
they're scoring at an insane rate, but they are massively overperforming XG and they don't have a guy.
And they haven't got the guy. They haven't got the Lewandowski guy.
Well, not in the big games, no. They don't have the difference maker.
To bail them out. And I think that could be Lautaro. I really think that could be Lautaro Martinez. I think that they should be eyeing that up. And I think PSG should be as well. With the exit of Messi and Neymar, I think that he would be a really nice fit at PSG.
Unfortunately, I can really see PSG.
Yeah, I can as well. And we know what you said throughout, Pato, is agency fees. I'm talking about the clubs being linked here. PSG, Chelsea,
Big money.
Man United,
All right.
Bayern.
All right, I'm getting my big calculator
There's
out.
serious money to be made on
Okay.
Lautaro Martinez. And he
How
works
much
like a dog as well.
what is
He works on a dog.
15% of this?
Even if, let's say, Inter absolutely rinse somebody and say, we want 100 million for him here, is paying 100 million euros for Lautaro Martinez in a market where Kolo Muani, they want 100 million euros for. Harry Kane with a year left on his contract, they want 120 million euros for. Osman, they want 150, 160 million euros. I think that's really good value. 100 million. Honestly, I do. I don't have a problem with paying 100 million euros for Lautaro Martinez.
I mean, I would paying 100 million, but personally,
You just paid 100 million euros for Mudryk.
Hey, we're not talking about Chelsea, right?
If Chelsea went and got
Apparently
Martinez this summer, that's literally the best striker signing you can make. Unless like Everton went down
Not
and you
for
got
100
Calvert-Lewin
million.
and his injury problems ended overnight, which none of those, well, maybe 2 out of 3 might happen. Then I just don't really see like what a team like Chelsea, who are not currently really dining at the top table,
No, for sure.
can do. I like Martinez because I think Martinez, you've got teams who've missed out on the absolute top guys, like you're saying, the Osimhen, the Kanes, and then you have teams who are ambitious and want to kind of show they're serious, not just to their fans but also to the player. I like it. I feel like there's a big payday
market,
coming.
big payday.
Maybe not at Chelsea though. I feel like the last Inter Milan striker didn't quite work out well enough. So
Yeah, but that's no reason to write up
Doesn't
Lautaro
matter.
Martinez.
Doesn't matter.
I think he'd be an
I
amazing
do, but I do agree.
I can't believe he's
other
still in
teams.
25.
I think other teams like his age profile is perfect. That profile you mentioned earlier that Maddison is just ahead of, where he is at 25 years old. He could get a huge move now, and then also at 29 possibly take another step forward too.
How many goals has he got this season, Martinez?
I think in all competitions, 23, 22, 23.
Do you know what he's got in the league?
He got 15 goals, 4 assists in 21 starts in the league.
Not bad.
He's had a couple injury problems.
And he's
He's
still
also-
playing in the front two this season. He's still playing in front two.
Well, it's been mixed, isn't it? Inter Milan have kind of changed and adapted, and recently he's been playing up alongside Romelu Lukaku, but early in the season he wasn't.
But he is your prototypical like clinical striker. I mean, I kind of feel like this is a bullshit label, but Lukaku, okay, you say like Lukaku didn't work out, but Lukaku is just a different sort of player. Like he's a guy who's good at running into space. He can actually create quite a bit, but he's not playing with back to goal, and he's not a fox in the box. Whereas if you've got a team like Bayern Munich, where you've got endless kind of wide options who are going to contribute
Thousands
10
of
to
them.
15 goals each, but you don't have one guy who you can park in there and just will just snaffle anything
And
that
just
comes
shoot
near him.
constantly.
That's what Martinez is going to do. Martinez will get 8 shots a game in Germany.
I like it.
He actually will.
But you're also right in terms of. I think the bigger thing for Inter is just the fact that they're going to have to sell players.
Yeah.
And that might be the one for us.
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
interested. I'm
I like
interested.
it.
I like it.
Well, Pat, those are our
World Cup
6
winner.
options, mate. You've got to pick 2 from there.
Okay, well, I'm going to go straight in and say Martinez has got to be on the list.
Okay. Most money. I get it.
And it's scarcity. You know, the lower supply, the greater demand, the more you can charge. And in this particular situation, there's huge demand for strikers. And Martinez actually has phenomenal pedigree, has pretty much the perfect age. I think there are people who think of him as maybe not as good on the ball as they'd like, but I think there are teams who will not care. And he's extremely mobile, you know, historically, good dribble numbers, a great presser, as he said. I like it.
Great
Lots of clubs
Huge
after him as well.
defensive
That's the thing as well. Like the second you've got several clubs after him, a bidding war starts happening, more agency fees keep increasing. We're happy.
Yeah, we'll be getting paid big bucks.
And he also he scores very high on the dog in him metric.
Exactly.
He's got a lot of dog in him.
And that does play a role, man. I love a player with a dog in him.
Especially for a team like Chelsea,
Yeah.
where I do think like Chelsea, you have loads of talent, but you haven't got like
dog.
one horrible bastard up front who just does it. You've got like Kai Havertz, who's like, you know, the kid who won't put his hand up in class. Like you do need.
I do love
somebody
like
who
a
just
South
converts
American
it.
Argentine, just sort of like, give me that, like I'm having it. But like,
Broly's
like
got a bit
Lissandro
of that,
Martinez,
but
just like
he's been injured,
smacked
he's been
into
injured, he's been
someone.
injured.
You're just like, go on.
You genuinely need some aggression. I think Bayern need that aggression as well. Like I think
Yeah.
Bayern have
That's
got
such a good
quite
fit
a
for
lot
Bayern, I
of
think.
nice boys. I like it.
Okay.
I think Martinez, and I think I'm going to shop him.
Do you want to
I'm going
remind?
to shop him to. I'm definitely going to try and get Spurs interested if Kane goes, but Bayern is probably
And PSG.
where I'm looking. Bayern and
PSG.
PSG.
Shout.
Okay, so
The other
that's
options you
option
got: James Maddison,
Yeah.
Aymeric Laporte, Romeo Lavia,
Ruben Neves, and
Ryan
my other
Gravenberch.
one was Ryan Gravenberch.
Okay. So I'm
Don't
gonna,
feel like you have to pick one of his either because
I'm
you're
gonna,
being nice.
I'm going to dismiss Laporte. I'm going to dismiss Lavia.
Dismiss Lavia.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I like
Where's
him.
the money to be had this summer?
I like him, but I it's just, it's long-termism. And I'm planning with the Martinez money to go and get drunk a lot on an island. So I could be dead by the time Lavia's shopping for his next move. So, you know what? I'm really stuck on Maddison, Gravenberch, and Neves. I think this is a really interesting trio.
You said you
of
want to take the
players.
money off the Saudis.
It's a great point. I do like the money off the Saudis.
Again, we can be talking the top.
Well, yeah, but let's just think about Ruben Neves, mate. The market's there for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I also
Number of
think,
clubs,
but
mate.
I also think that Neves, when you've got number 6, they go to a team, and no matter how good they are, they will never be that heralded.
The Enzo,
the
Enzo conundrum.
Like Rodri is like the guy who everyone's like, wow, he's the best in the world. But like literally no one cares about Rodri. Like he is just like a shirt tucked in merchant. Like he's just like a sourceless man who's great. But like
It's come off the back of the Man City.
Best player in the world is Raiola.
but Guardiola is like the only guy who truly values that player above all others. I feel like if you go to a club and you're Ruben Neves and you're very good, then people will take you for granted a little bit, because I think people do take you for granted.
Well, it'll be like,
Whereas if you're a final third guy like Gravenberch or Maddison, you can have a season where you get 10 goals in the league and people are like, we've got to give him a huge new contract. This guy's amazing. So, Maddison or Gravenberch? I think...
Premier League money with
Yeah, I
Maddis,
think I've got to go
guess
Maddis.
You
also-
get Premier League money from Gravenberch because he's coming to Liverpool.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
only
I've got
over
to go-
30. He's
I think
only
I've got
over
to go
30
Maddis.
grand.
I think I've got to go Maddis. I think Maddis is getting a big payday. I think that I can easily see the bidding war that gets whipped up there.
Yeah.
I think that I could get Chelsea involved if Mount goes. Spurs 100% are interested. Newcastle, worst case scenario, he goes to Newcastle for 40 mil.
Yeah.
Oh no, like that.
And the
that's
work's already been
absolutely
done for you
fine.
on that one.
Yeah, and they're literally going to give me like a huge amount. They're going to give me land in the Middle East. I'm going to have oil wells by the end of this. So I think that I've got to go Madders because he's definitely moving. He's definitely moving. And I think Gravenberch is one of those guys who, if Arsenal don't come in for him, if Spurs don't come in for him, if it's just Liverpool, I feel like Liverpool probably get him for like a pretty reasonable price. I think then I've got to wait 3 or 4 years until they probably pay him 80k up front.
Yeah.
And then in a couple of years, maybe they're like, oh, we give him 120. I'm not having that. Maddison, I reckon, he's coming in. He's getting paid in diamonds.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So there's Patrick Van Straten's decision. I think we've got time as well for a couple of quickfire questions in here. Just Tom Desborough. Thoughts on Pochettino to Chelsea?
Probably
You're up.
Considering Nagelsmann has pulled himself out of the race because he wasn't the only candidate, probably the best decision we can go for. I mean, in general, like I previously, when people had mentioned Poch, I hadn't had time to really look into.
Previously,
to
you'd said,
Poch,
nah.
and It wasn't that I said nah. It was more that I like the idea of Nagelsmann. When we sat here, we did the Fix Chelsea. I think the idea of Nagelsmann and this kind of like the way he wants to play his football, this all-out attack kind of football, I like that, and the fact that it was going to be these hybrid formations, so on and so forth. But we've kind of seen other managers do that recently at Chelsea, and it's not quite worked out. And so a guy that kind of previously with the likes of Spurs had a young team and was able to develop them and improve them, and obviously just missed out on winning a Premier League title, went to the Champions League final. Look, it's good. I think he'll also be raring to manage again because he's not done that in a little while too. Overall, I'd be pretty happy with it. I actually would.
I think it's a good move.
I actually think it's kind of fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's really good.
I'm really
considering
positive
what's
about it.
left as well. Considering what's left, that Nagelsmann said no.
I don't even think considering what's left, mate. I think
Poch has benefited
Pochettino is an outstanding coach, has a history of working and improving young players, and now comes off the back of working in the worst coaching environment in European football, in PSG, and people have tried to use that as a stick to beat him, as if Thomas Tuchel didn't come out the same environment and win a Champions League at Chelsea. That's a comical point. I just think that he is almost the perfect fit for that group of players, and the fact that there's no true standout superstars in the club kind of will allow him to go, yeah, I know that you cost 70 million, but you're not for me, and you are going to be benched.
And his history with fullbacks.
I said the same thing when he talked about
the way he used to cook with fullbacks at Spurs, like the seasons he got out of Davis and Rose and obviously Walker and Trippier. If you give him Reece James and Ben Chilwell,
crazy, and Malo Gusto coming in,
Malo Gusto, and even
Ian
Cucurella
Maatsen,
as well.
possibly.
Like I think that's tremendously exciting. I think this is actually a really, really exciting move. And the other thing that Poch gives you is Poch is one of those cult leader managers.
Yeah, I agree.
And we do need that.
Because Nagelsmann's a great tactician, but Nagelsmann does not yet have the presence to get everybody singing from his hymn sheet. Whereas Pochettino at Spurs, it was like the fans, the club, the players, everybody was just like, Pochettino, we will like walk into like the teeth of death for Pochettino. If any team needs that, it's Chelsea.
Well, 100%. Watching us again on Brentford, like it just felt like a lot of them were kind of flat. And I think it would be. It also might be the only chance of us keeping Mason Mount too.
But I think even if Mason Mount leaves, I don't think it's a massive problem for Poch. I think looking at that squad and identifying how Poch wants to play. Let's say he wants to play with a second striker. You know what? Oh no, Mount's gone. We'll have to play Havertz as a second striker. Like Havertz could play the Dele Alli role, or like you could have Nkunku, who's arriving, play the Dele Alli. I don't think it's a massive issue. That would be sick. I don't think it's a massive issue that if Mason Mount leaves. To be honest with you, I think that there is enough quality in the squad to get by. I think that's absolutely fine, and you're going to get a big fee for him anyway. Let's go to another one. This is going to cause a bit of debate, maybe. Jacob Westbrook. If Arsenal finished second, would they have had a better or worse season than United? Finishing third and winning a trophy. This is a debate that's been had a lot online.
Could win the FA Cup too.
This debate has been had a lot online, hasn't it? I think I can't remember who started it now, but
I think Arsenal would have had still the better season, considering where they were previously. And the massive improvement, and also not just that, like the things that it's done this season has done for the club as a whole and from the fan base. Like it's made them believe that the season after they'll be challenging for the Premier League title and put Arsenal, I think in terms of players now as well, if you're a player and say 2 seasons ago it was Arsenal are interested in you compared to now Arsenal are interested in you, I think you are going to be so...
You want to go to Arsenal.
You're going to go to Arsenal now, and also you're going to be able to go for a higher standard of player too.
Pat?
I mean, I would say Arsenal, but that's, I think, because Arsenal are better than Man United and they're younger and their squad is closer to completion. And you're right. Like if this is the difference between them going and getting some young midfield prospect and going and getting Declan Rice, that's been a huge step forward. Arsenal have really announced themselves this season as serious contenders for the title. Whereas I think, United
still a lot of work to be done there.
United next year will be like, our aim is to get top 4 again. Winning those trophies doesn't really kind of guarantee that you're going to make a step forward. However, I do think winning the trophies was really important. But Arsenal won a bunch of FA Cups in the middle of the 2010s, and none of those cups suggested that we were about to take a huge step forward.
I think there's an interesting, I think linguistically, there's 2 different answers here. I think who's had the most successful season? Which is what some people have kind of termed it as. I think it probably is Man United if they win a cup and finish third, and Arsenal don't and finish second. Who's had the better season? Who's enjoyed watching their season more? It's undeniably Arsenal. Arsenal fans have had a better time watching their club this season than Manchester United have, even if they fall off and win the league by 6 points and they finish on 90 points. I think Arsenal have had a better season from a fan's perspective, from a player's perspective, from an owner's perspective. It's undeniably been Arsenal. But a more successful season has been Man United. As for who's set up for better next season, it's definitely Arsenal. Arsenal are going to finish on probably 90 plus points with the youngest squad in the league.
I think we have to win out to hit 90.
Do you? You have to win out to 99.
But we'll hit mid-80s minimum.
Yeah, and you'd set up for an incredible season next year as well. And I think Manchester United are also set up really well for a good season next year. Just because Manchester United have been inconsistent, I don't think that's a massive stick to beat Erik ten Hag with, given the nature of some of the players he's having to bring off the bench. Having to watch Man United versus Tottenham, total dominance for 45 minutes. Look at the bench and it's Fred, Weghorst and Malacia coming on, and you can see why Erik ten Hag is struggling when David De Gea has played his 50th game of the season, and United are probably going to end up playing 60 games this season, having to bring Weghorst off the bench in 25 of them, or start 20 of them. That's a huge problem. So I think who's had the better season, Arsenal, more successful season, United.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
There we go. All right, so that's it for this week's Sunday Vibes, but we do have a quick announcement about Euro Football Daily. Jalab, do you want to deliver the news?
Brilliant. I'm the one to deliver it.
This is the headshot.
Basically, guys, we've come to the decision as a team that we think it's best to kind of just focus on Football Daily and take some of the best stuff on Euro Football Daily and bring that over to Football Daily.
All of the best stuff in one place, rather than two channels that's
Exactly.
kind of diluted. Put it all together into one channel,
Exactly.
super channel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So don't worry, Stat Wars will be coming over,
Continental
Club and other things as well. And I just think for us as well, to make sure that we can kind of make the best content on one channel. For instance, Sunday Vibes, it gives us more time to do research into things and
Club.
bring possibly a new show out as well on Football Daily. I think overall it's the best idea.
It basically
for
just
us.
means that rather than doing 4 top 10s a week across 2 channels,
Yeah.
we'll probably do 1 top 10 on Football Daily. We'll include Continental Club onto the Football Daily roster. We'll bring Stat Wars onto the Football Daily roster. The Explains will both be on the Football Daily roster. Rather than having 2 channels where it's a bit more diluted, all of the best stuff will be in one place. We just think it makes a little bit more sense.
Quality over quantity, I think, is what we're trying to
and
get
it's something
across.
we've been doing on Sunday Vibes to some degree as well, like trying to bring back things like How to Fit,
Yeah.
which we know people like, but are a bit
Exactly,
more labour
exactly.
intensive if you want us to be informed on those particular teams. Like, we don't want to feel like we're all cramming at the last minute. We want to feel like we come here with big opinions that we can actually argue about, and I think overall it will give us a higher standard of content.
Exactly. So look out for that over the next couple of months. We're going to be trying to embed that into the schedule. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please do subscribe to the new joint home, Football Daily. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later.